Good evening. Welcome to the Lost Confederacy channel. This is week 4 of our 13-week fiscal program for American descendants of slavery. Here we put emphasis on the A in the acronym ADOS, just to emphasize that we are the Americans and that we are currently prisoners of war and under military occupation. You have myself, Chief Biko, here today, Chief Alligator, Chief Blackcoat, Chief Quietwater, as well as Chief Akiblan. Today, we're going to jump straight into the Treaty of Fort Gibson, Article 1. But prior to that, I do want to stress that there is no money within the system and that the treaty is the supreme law of the land.
Yep.
Okay. So the first thing we're going to go off and read will be Section 10 of the Constitution, pretty much reiterating that there is no money within its current government structure. Section 10, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So again, make anything but gold and silver coin, a tender in payment of debts. One thing that we always stress and reemphasize every week is that the dollar has not been backed by gold nor silver since the Gold Standard Act in 1971. So once that act was passed, gold and silver were taken out of the government. So pretty much it was backed by nothing. A fiat currency backed just by the faith of its citizens. So again, pretty much the government is in debt and we have nothing that's backing this money. So it's all pretty much make believe, but pretty much all pieces in this game called Monopoly.
Mm.
The next thing will be Article 6. And this is where we continue to stress the importance of treaties, and that treaties are the supreme law of the land. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be found thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So again here, you can see treaties shall be the supreme law of the land. So according to this treaty that we're reading, Treaty of Fort Gibson, this will be the only treaty that we have read thus far within this fiscal quarter, as well as the last fiscal quarter, that actually had a member of the government or a member of Congress actually sign off of it. And I believe that was the Secretary of War that actually signed off on this Treaty of Fort Gibson. So with that being said, this will pretty much be the only quote unquote valid treaty that was actually done or signed between the actual Americans and the military occupation that we know as the United States government and their military branch. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the Treaty of Fort Gibson. I'll start off the reading of Article 1. Article 1.
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah. Let me see if I can expand it. It just made it a little worse. Hold on. How's that look? That's a little better.
Yeah, can you go one more bigger?
One more bigger. Let me see. Yeah. All right. All right. Article 1, the Muskogee or Creek Nation of Americans west of the Mississippi declare themselves to be the friends and allies of the United States, under whose parental care and protection they desire to continue, and that they are anxious to live in peace and friendship, not only with their near neighbors and brothers, the Cherokees, but with all the surrounding tribe of Americans. So what I get from this is pretty much just a slap in the face. Real authoritative, seeming almost again here where it says parental, making our ancestors seem as minors, seem as children who are happy to be playing with their friends at the local park. That's how it comes off.
Always playing that new character.
Correct. Underneath the parental care and protection, as though they hadn't been doing that themselves prior to the European invasion. So it definitely comes off as arrogant to me, and just shows the superiority or the fake superiority or superiority complex that the European has, just from this one article here. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Just using that language, overall parental care, I mean, that definitely shows you that they feel that they're in some type of superior position over them.
Correct.
Yeah.
I could zoom in like this. Okay. That ain't gonna let me do it. Any other thoughts, Chief Blackcoat?
Yeah.
No, I was saying, let me find it. The Muskegee and the Creek Nation of the Indian west of the Mississippi declare themselves to be friends and allies of the United States. That pops out because now you're coming into an agreement and they're talking about being friends and allies. So that just deal plays out. What went left, what went right, but now we're seeing that language change when they're making deals with the United States and friends and allies. So we're supposed to be working hand in hand. And what happened?
You're not clear, Chief Eco. Can y'all hear him? Is he clear to y'all?
No, he was breaking up in the first part. It got a little better.
Oh,
Yeah, you're not clear.
you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
What were you saying?
Oh, just how going into that agreement, this language, friends and allies, being on the stage making this deal with this crew and the Muskegee. We're supposed to be working together now, and we're making that type of deal.
Right.
Moving forward, right. So the lion, pretty much.
That's what I was going.
Now we're just more. Oh my bad. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
Yeah, I was going to build on that too. That this is the ground floor of before the Civil War. You can already see that everybody that went west of the Mississippi, they were down with the United States government. So you can already see that the family is going to be infighting, because everybody that didn't go east, yeah, they're telling you right here that everybody who's in Oklahoma, they're fighting with the Union.
Right.
So we can already see how everybody that didn't leave, we can see how we're going to be fighting our own bloodline, and we're going to be fighting the road. Right.
Yeah.
Chief Akibalan, what are your thoughts on that? I can hear me. And apologize. I can't see anybody on the screen.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're good.
Well, my thoughts is that I feel like that, like what Chief Alligator just said, that they kind of made them fight each other by taking one part of the whole and making them think a certain way and see things from the European perspective, and then having the people who didn't go across the Mississippi thinking away, and it basically turned them against each other, because them thinking like that made the half that didn't go and the half that did go see each other as enemies. And if the European could have made both of them enemies amongst each other, it's like they didn't really have to do too much.
Correct.
And they would do it against themselves.
Good point. You can see this still translates to today.
Yep. Even with the vaccines.
Correct. Great parallel between the two. You got families infighting over something that's just a choice. But again, who's the orchestrator of it all will be the government.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Jump here to Article 2.
Can I tell you something real quick on your Article 1?
Go ahead.
That goes right back to Dr. Claude Anderson and Judge Joe Brown.
Mhm.
There are those that know their nationality, they're already siding with the United States government.
Mm,
Y'all see what I'm
right.
saying? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're for the United States government. So like Chief Akibalon said, we see that play out till today. They'll get in front of us and tell us that we were slaves, when in reality, they got Dawes roll numbers. So yeah, they know clearly whose side they're on.
Correct.
Puppets.
Article 2 here, the United States hereby agree by and with the consent of the Creek and Cherokee delegates this day obtain that the Muskogee or Creek country west of the Mississippi shall be embraced within the following boundaries. It is beginning at the mouth of the North Fork of the Canadian River and run northly for 4 miles, thence running a straight line so as to meet a line drawn from the south bank of the Arkansas River, opposite to the east or lower bank of Grand River. So right here, it seems like they're marking out the territory in which the creek will be pretty much concentrated in a new territory, present day Oklahoma. I'll continue. At this junction with the Arkansas, which runs a course south 44 degrees west, 1 mile to a post placed in the ground, thence along said line to the Arkansas, and up the same at the Verdigris River to where the old territorial line crosses it. Thence along said line north to a point 25 miles from Arkansas River, where the old territorial line crosses the same, thence running a line at the right angles with the territorial line aforesaid or west of the Mexico line. So again, just drawing out that border. Thence along the said line southerly to the Canadian River, or to the boundary of the Choctaw country. Thence down said river to the place of beginning. Lines hereby defining the country of the Muskogee Americans on the north and east, down the country of the Cherokee along these courses, excuse me, as settled by the treaty concluded this day between the United States and the article in the tribe. So again, this is just pretty much the boundaries in which the Creek Nation will be concentrated within Oklahoma. And it also seems like they're going to be pretty much right or neighbors to the Cherokee Nation.
In real estate today, the way that they just describe like the parameters and the boundaries of what they're going to be living in, that's called a meets and bounds. And it's basically the measurements and boundaries that you use to to show a plot of land. Like it starts with a point of beginning, then it goes a certain amount of degrees, and it labels what are those things called? Monuments, which is like saying, what do they call it? Like using the Canadian River and then saying the line to Arkansas is using certain boundaries and everything. So it's crazy that they use that before.
Okay.
See, like I said before, it's like they have this whole thing already planned out.
It seems like you stated, they're still practicing the same methods today.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Correct. The word Chief Akibalon was looking for is landmarks. So what they did was they wrote them off, and they're going to use specific landmarks, rivers, a post in the ground, basically putting them on concentration camps. Really, if you look back, I mean, I guess you could say they're winning because they don't pay tax to the United States government because they're citizens of Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw Nation, so they don't pay tax to the United States government that beat them in wars and put them or rope them off. But the downside is, what do you have in that area? Like you said, Chief Biko, you was in Oklahoma a couple of months ago, and you didn't see anything of any kind of wealth that they had in that area. So
infrastructure.
It sounds like everybody got a bad deal. We got the worst deal, of course, because we're paying taxes to a government that has prisoners of war to it. Imagine
We're
that.
getting distorted.
Yep.
We got the worst deal, but we never made a deal at all. So,
That's the bar.
right.
That's true. Great point on that one. Article 3. Who wants to go ahead and take Article 3? Oh, you said my thoughts?
Mhm.
No, I would agree with all of that. I would agree with all of that. I would say, as stated, believe those who did go west of the Mississippi, they did, like you stated, they did keep at least get to keep some of their culture as far as their language, their practices, things of that nature. But anything I would say that is tangible as far as a resource, I didn't see it. I didn't see it when we was making that track through Oklahoma. Again, there was no, I didn't see any type of industrial type of manufacturing going on. Didn't really see any crops, no agriculture. So it's like, okay, what are you doing to, produce quote unquote fiat, this money to even, I guess, support yourselves or your community, your society. So I didn't see any of that within that tract of land coming from I-40.
It's like they basically just settled and literally got nothing at all out of the deal. But they had the wherewithal to, they knew how to do these things. So it was just like throughout the years, everything was just diminished away. They just basically diminished of who they were actually. So now they're left current day with, like you said, just a desolate land with no resources, no way to generate things themselves. They're pretty much dependent on the government to this day.
Correct.
But as friends or allies, so they confuse them with their wordplay too, because they probably come into the agreement thinking, okay, now we're about to all sit together and do business.
Right.
No.
I think with that, they just keep they still have an eye on them. And when I say they, I'm talking about the government. Like Chief Alligator was saying, they're basically concentrated areas, a concentration camp. We know where you're at. If you're outside of that, this is our, yeah, we may not be able to come in y'all's, but we can still manipulate it to where you'll still need us. We'll poison you with, they're going through that now, poison in the water on these reservations. Fluoride, different things of that nature. So it's like,
Flint, Michigan, still not clean water.
You'll still need us in the end type of thing. Because again, they're concentrated in the middle of a landmass with no resources. Nobody can water that they can actually do trade with or things of that. So it's like, did you really get anything beneficial out of the deal besides being able to keep your culture pretty much?
Well, some people didn't even keep that.
Right. Let's not forget now they're in Oklahoma. So the United States government and the military, they thought they were putting them in no man's land. Less than 100 years after this treaty, they bombed Tulsa, Oklahoma. So yeah, the original founders of oil in that area, that's how the area blew up. And then the Europeans was like, oh, it is wealth out there. And then now you have no remnants that you even run Tulsa. This government waged war. Why? Because it goes back to that paragraph before Article 2, where it says under whose parental care and protection. So if you look at it from the European standpoint, once y'all found it was oil and y'all got your own Wall Street going on out there, oh, y'all under our protection. We need that.
They talk about that in that show called Lovecraft Country.
Okay.
That and what's the other show? The Watchmen. I think
I didn't watch The Watchmen. Need to watch it. No pun intended.
Kept hearing about it.
That's a great point.
So wow, struck some oil. The government came in like, yeah, we need that.
Think of it as just to, I guess, bring it full circle for you. I would say, Chief Black Coat, think of it as being out there in what's called the Middle East when you was deployed. That was out there for oil, to be honest with you.
Right.
Out there to make sure they was upholding it. They ended the bargain as far as the petrodollar, I guess. making sure,
Right.
okay, y'all can only deal within our currency. If you try to go outside of that, we're gonna kill you. Muammar Gaddafi. What's his name?
Mhm.
Hussein.
That's a good point.
All of these what's now considered the Middle East countries, they only can deal pretty much with the dollar in regards to their oil. If they try to step outside of that, that's when you'll see, oh, Libya's trying to, there's some stuff going on with Al Qaeda, or they'll make up whatever they is to the media, but under the guise, but we know it's because of the resources. And that would be the same thing with
Always the resources.
They always tear it down when we find a
The
way to
land
get
is
built
rich.
up.
They trying to stay rich forever. You need that land.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Who wants to pick up at Article 3?
I'll do it. The United States will grant a patent in fee. That's great. The United States will grant a patent in fee simple to the Creek Nation of Indians for the land assigned said nation by this treaty or convention, whenever the same shall have been ratified by the President and the Senate of the United States, and the right thus guaranteed by the United States shall be continued to said tribe of Indians, so long as they shall exist as a nation and continue to occupy the country hereby assigned them.
So it seems like they had a clause at the end there.
Yeah. That's so this the fee simple thing is something that they use in real estate now too. So it's, to me it's seeming like they were just treating everybody kind of like property and speaking to them in like terms of property, literally. Like fee simple is a way of ownership, and fee simple is when you own something like completely as in yours, like there's no more ownership. But then they reversed it and made it not to where they have it in complete ownership and put a clause in it to where you only can have this completely if all of y'all do this. So it's like a bait and switch. They just tricked them once again.
I gotta on what he just said about the in fee simple and the patent. How can a foreign government own the land without killing the chiefs that were really the owners of that area? You see what I'm saying? Like, how could the United States government say, oh, we're going to grant a patent in fee simple, like you own it? So it's almost like under threat and coerce or under gunpoint, they had to get the real owners or occupiers of that land to sign something over to the government. And then the government can, you see, does that, y'all tell me, well, Chief Akibalan.
And then I think with, if I'm not mistaken, when there is a patent on the land, that's what it does, basically traces it back to the original owner of that land. So there is you can go back to the original owner if it does have a patent on it. And so that it was probably for their record keeping more so than anything.
Right. So are you saying that the United States government can't be the patent holder because somebody was there before 1776 when they established the government? So are you saying on that patent that it would be whatever American chief or council?
Right.
Okay. Somebody signed it over.
Yeah. And they're granting it to the Creek Nation of America.
Go ahead, Chief Akibalan. What you think?
Oh snap! I forgot. No, this is
you were thinking something.
No, I was. This just doesn't make sense. Like they just keep tricking these people. And I mean, we can't change what they see, but it's like now that I see what it says in the treaties, it's just like some of this stuff is blatant trickery, and it's blatant trickery.
What you see, Chief Blackcoat, on that granted patent? So let me ask this. So from your experience in Afghanistan, how would that work? Would y'all meet with local chiefs or leaders on that land before you occupy it? How would that work?
If we want to talk about that briefly, I think I mentioned before, you meet with whoever that leader of that neighborhood or area before we can enter it. So someone goes in, meet with whoever, we get the green light, you go inside. But back to this her article. Yeah, back to that Chief of People line. They're saying like, yeah, they're speaking all of this in their language. So whoever this translator is, has to translate this to them. So in order for, even if they could understand it, they're still wrapping it back up some way, somehow, to where they're pretty much removing that land from their, ownership. So it's like this whole thing is
There had to be 0 people in power on the side of the natives.
as far as having
'Cause
power,
there is-
real power, correct.
Not having real power, but like there had to be no person of like no leader for real in the group anymore after they, signed these treaties, because there was no possible way that somebody would sign this knowing what it actually meant. And if you talk to somebody who knows about war and knows about like
The translator is an agent, so
Yeah.
he's acting like he's presenting the correct information to these nations, to these Americans. He's probably saying the crazy stuff because now they're
they were
confined
selling
back
out like
into
tickets back then.
yeah.
I'm gonna throw something in.
See you today.
Can you highlight something, Chief Vico?
Yeah.
Can you highlight where it starts whenever the same
He said whenever the same.
and go all the way down to as they exist as a nation? Yeah. So it looks like if the United States government is saying you got the right to occupy that area so long as you exist as a nation. So what happens if they disintegrate your nation? Then it's like you don't own it. So I'm saying that
Right.
look at the Creek Confederacy. Look at where we are that's east of the Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we're probably so disorganized is because they have destroyed any kind of organization amongst us. And so then in their terms, that gives them the right to own or occupy the land. Because the only reason you can still hold that land is if you're still a nation.
Right.
So if you lose your language, your flag, your culture, then you're no longer a nation.
And that's a good point too, Chief Alligator, just to piggyback on that, because we already see the representation of our people throughout history. Like you always state, Negro, colored, Afro-American. So when you start to do that and you start to dwindle the real numbers of said nation, then you can extinct them just by reclassifying them as something else. So that would just take them a few generations. I'm pretty sure the actual but numbers for the Creek or the Creek Nation lower, but that's not true because we can trace our lineage back to that, but again, it's just how they view it in their census. So that's a great point there.
I just want to know where they got these plans from. That's my whole question, though. Like I'm not gonna say I don't care about the treaties, but I just want to know where they got all this from because it's the exact same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
Even with like
I was dealing with the United States government.
because it all simmers and boils down into like somebody being on the inside. Whether Black Panthers, it was always somebody on the inside. Whenever the United States goes to take something over, they always plant somebody on the inside. So I just want to know where they got it from. Because it's a smart plan. Maybe I need to be planted on the inside somewhere. Might be a Sam Puckett guy in the politicians for a couple of years just to tear something down.
For real.
How it works.
Yeah, my morale about to decline in a second.
This part stood out to me though, that Grant patent. I was reading it a little bit differently. I think then a lot of you all just based off of like us knowing what a patent is, and then it's a fee simple, meaning complete ownership. So it seems like to me, whatever was created on that land should have been owned by the Creek Nation. So like I know we talk about Tulsa, so any type of inventions that happened there, that should have been ours wholeheartedly, no matter if it was destroyed as far as within that town or anything like that, just for example, because we still know they have a copy of that within the records. So it's like that we should still be what we usually say, getting those residuals, getting income from that invention or whatever was created
Right.
from that land. So I would like to look into that too, to see what possibly was created within that area.
I would say the only reason, and again, is we just building, but I would say that wouldn't be correct because right before we read Article 2, the United States made it clear you're going to be under the parental care and protection.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying that to say, do you ever see the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole, or Cherokee Nation at the United Nations with their flag? No. Why? Because the United States government is the parent of those 5 civilized
Like a
tribes.
parent guardian asking to go on the
Right.
field trip.
Mhm.
Company
So
basically.
you can't say you own nothing when they're claiming to be the, like Chief Akebelon just said, they're acting as if you're minor.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's like you only get to talk on a certain extent, under certain terms.
Right. Because I could be wrong. Somebody drop it in the comments if you see this video. Have you ever seen one of the 5
When
civilized
they see the
tribes
video.
at the United Nations? I don't think they have a seat at the United Nations.
No, that makes sense.
No.
Only time I see native tribes is when they building pipelines and trying to destroy some stuff.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
It's like they stay out of everything else.
United States is acting as the parent company for these nations.
Right.
Well, let's see here. Who wants to pick up on Article 4?
I'll go ahead.
Oh.
Oh, go ahead. You want to continue, Chief?
Yeah, you almost slipped up and called me my. It is hereby mutually. It is hereby mutually understood and agreed between the parties to this treaty that the land assigned to the Muskogee natives by the second article thereof shall be taken and considered the property of the whole Muskogee or Creek Nation, as well of those now residing upon the land, as the great body of said nation, who still remain on the east side of the Mississippi. And it is also understood and agreed that the Seminole natives of Florida, whose removal to this country is provided for by their treaty with the U.S. dated May 9th, 1832, shall also have a permanent and comfortable home on the lands hereby set apart as the country of the Creek Nation. And they, the Seminoles, will hereafter be considered a constituent part of said nation, but are to be located on some part of the Creek country by themselves, which location will be selected for them by the commissioners who have signed these articles of agreement or convention. So I feel like what they just said. So the Muskogee and the Creek aren't the same people, correct?
I think they're interchangeable.
Correct.
Okay. They're interchangeable. But what it seems like to me is that they took 2 different nations. They gave one nation more land, and then they gave the Creeks more land and gave the Seminoles like a little slice of the Creeks land, and basically told them like, here, we're just gonna set you guys onto these people's land. But since the Creeks were already, like a part of the United States government, as far as like talking to them, it was kind of like they were just placed on like a U.S. campground, I guess you could say. I don't know.
Okay, I'll help them out. Can you highlight shall be taken and considered the property?
I just don't like how they talk to these people. It's disrespectful.
Come on up, Chief Biko, with your cursor.
I might have to go check somebody's ancestors or something real quick.
Keep coming up right there. And come all the way down to the east side of Mississippi. Boom. So this is proof right here that the Creek Nation was the lead nation in the Creek Confederacy, which is everything southeast and east of the Mississippi, because it said shall be taken and considered the property of the whole Muskogee or Creek Nation, as well of those now residing upon the land, as the great body of said nation who still remain on the east side of the Mississippi. So this is a prime example that our ancestors are, no, let me say it correctly, our family basically walked away from us. When they went west of the Mississippi, we still had our nations intact. Some were Creek, some were Seminole, some were Cherokee. We were all supposed to still come up under the Creek Nation, according to this treaty. So how do we get to a status where we're now been reclassified every generation from colored to Negro to Black? It's because they sold us out. They went to Oklahoma and act like we don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
What's y'all thoughts on that? Because they were responsible for everything east of the Mississippi, because that was the Creek Confederacy.
I mean, this is proof here that shows that they still have family, like you said, east of the Mississippi. So we could still be able to claim our birthright, our lineage.
Right.
I agree with Biko. They're all connected, and I just feel like it's just divide and conquer. Like they're strategically splitting people up, but they're doing it slowly and like in increments, so it won't just be like, dang, they just took half of my family.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're doing this. It's like with gentrification. Like you don't see gentrification happen overnight. It's like a slowly creeping thing. It's like it creep up slowly, and it gets bigger and bigger, and eventually, when you look up, it's like, dang, everything's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it goes back to just how they strategically planned this. Chief Akibalan said, it's not something that they just woke up and, they made all of these moves. It's like they kind of, they did it in pieces and increments. And then they had to get people to side with them to agree to make this plan happen. So that's how they got from point A to point B in the whole transition of things.
And they're not even that strong. They're just smart. Like it would be different if they just came and took stuff, but you had to trick people. That's just weak. Like you should have just came to us on the battlefield, honestly. Whoever's watching this, if your ancestors did it, I want to see you.
I was just more organized. They were just more organized.
It's amazing, as they say, as the great body of said nation who still remain on the east side of the Mississippi. So for everybody in Oklahoma whose lineage ran, this is clear evidence that even the Europeans acknowledge it. Most of y'all still in the Creek Confederacy east of the Mississippi.
Right.
Yeah, that's the great body of us. We were still there.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take us.
But then they also said, wait, you just said it. Then they also said, in as well as those now residing upon the land. So I feel like there were some Europeans that are probably on the land, and they said those who are now on the land because now it's part of the Europeans too. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just something that I feel like they tried to slide too, just because they're pretty sneaky. But if the Europeans was on the land too, and you're saying that this land is for everybody, including people who are just on the land and not of the nations, then that can be anybody's land as well. Like anybody can have ownership on that land. Because if it was just for the natives, they wouldn't have had to say anybody on the land.
What you think about that, Chief Blackcoat, Chief?
I agree with what Chief Otimon said.
I would
Like
say
the way that they worded things, everything, there was always some type of underhanded meaning to what they were right.
And then Chief Otimon also said something about how they just don't wake up. And, like this is a lot of planning to it. Yeah, war is mental. That's number one. So instead of just continuing to fight physically,
I don't know if they got a playbook or what, but they had something.
I think that that those now residing upon the land was probably like some of our other natives that they pretty much like already here. Might have been a small tribe, so they're like, okay, we're not gonna remove them, but they all look alike. We'll just mix them in here again, classifying who the natives that was already there
and reclassify.
Mm-hmm. I would say this kind of stood out to me. This the Seminole Americans of Florida whose removal to this country is provided by their treaty with the U.S. dated May 9th, 1832. We know that's the Treaty of Payne's Landing, but it was funny how they put U.S. All throughout this treaty. I don't think we even saw U.S. Everything is spelled out United States, and it kind of brings back the point of who we were doing a deal with the military and not with the government. So it seems like they're acknowledging that they made a deal, but just not acknowledging that they made a deal with the United States.
Right.
Great observation. Because remember we talked last week that this is the ground floor, the left and right wing of that bird.
Mm-hmm.
One wing of that bird is the military, one wing is the we the people.
Correct.
We know the military was contracting with all these nations. And so the we the people, the deal was you go out, you do ground operations, and you actually go out there and start roping people off, moving people around, as Chief Blackcoat would say, right? That was the deal from the very beginning. What's going to happen after this treaty and about 20 years later is they're going to start bumping heads with each other. The military is going to be like, well, shit, we did all the dirty work. We running operations down here. We want our own Confederacy. So you're right. You can see the we the people referring to the military saying, now they're acknowledging, yeah, you already contracted with us, but they didn't because the military said separate and apart from the U.S.
Right.
Well, this could mean United Services or something, you know. That doesn't mean United States. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're reading
They
it,
keep doing all this weird stuff.
yeah, if you're not aware of what the hell's going on, you're like, oh, US, they just abbreviating United States. They didn't abbreviate this shit.
Right.
It could be the usual suspects.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here.
My alarm went off. It's 45 after. Y'all want to?
Okay.
Y'all want to
We can
stop?
stop here. That'll be meaning we'll pick up here Article 5 next week. But again, that was some great points of how they tried to pretty much rewrite a lot of things, and just reword certain things, really sneaky, like really shisty with their wordplay. I'm gonna go ahead and read off the 12 steps. So here, first step, learn about the estate or estates your family originated from. Step 2, who established that estate. Step 3, what nation and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the European.
Yeah, because turn your camera on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Step 4, ask all nonprofit organizations you attend what's your position on reparations. Step 5, they either support it or they do not. No support equals no money. However, if they support it, then immediately children and adults need weekly classes free of charge about steps 1, 2, and 3, and field trips to Adolph's landmarks in that city, county, and state. Step 6, don't support European holidays for the remainder of the 13-week time frame. Number 7, avoid spending money with any small business that doesn't hire your people, gas stations, nail salons, subways, etc. Number 8, all businesses need operating cash. Spend money with the American Black businesses. Number 9, all other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive. Set the trends of making other groups follow our lead and support our clubs, services, products, and entertainment. Step 10, the U.S. government is bankrupt. The Federal Reserve prints money, i.e. quantitative easing. It also burns money, i.e. quantitative tightening. The U.S. dollar hasn't been backed by gold since Richard Nixon, 1971, the Gold Standard Act. The government operates off the full faith of its citizens to pay debt and taxes. American descendants of slavery no longer have faith in the U.S. government. This is why financial support will be altered, stopped, and redirected. Step 11, teach our kids 1 hour a day about their history on this land. A, have them learn about an American inventor. B, have them know about our heroes. C, they should know the European that conquered the estate you live in. And D, you should know the nation of people prior to European invasion, militarily and culturally. 12, practicing these steps will educate us on the land we're claiming America and attaches us to the history and laws of the United States government. Every American descendant of slavery live in should have steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised via social media, radio, and newspapers. This in 13 weeks, 1 fiscal quarter, will bring us together for our common cause. All right. Next, we'll have Chief Blackcoat read. Matter of fact, we're gonna have Chief Blackcoat, you read the inventor.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Pull it up real fast. All right, so I really hope I'm not repeating an inventor. I saw this one, I was like, okay, I got to do this one. I don't know why. But today or tonight, we got Newman Russell Marshman. Newman is the inventor, or he has the patent for the improvement of the typewriter. So our court clerks or our court reporters that type up everything all fast. He is coined, for their invention. He was born in New York, New York, nationality being American. Birthday was December 19th, 1846, and his death date was November 2nd, 1930. Let me get that patent number for you guys real quick. That patent number will be 315366. And the date of that patent is April 7th, 1885.
What percentage of income do we receive for that industry being created? Because you wouldn't have computers or anything if it wasn't for the typewriter first.
Right. Look through that. Saw his net worth for that family last name was like at 0. So that automatically told me we own nothing of the industry at all.
And what
Did you
was the
say
name again? I'm sorry.
Newman Russell.
Right. Newman Russell Marshman.
Okay.
And you said 1885 or 1785, brother?
1885.
Yeah, you get it right.
Okay. Thank you.
That little keyboard right there in front of us, everything we use on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
Big businesses, little businesses, everybody got to use a computer today.
Correct.
It's crazy.
Thank you for that there, Chief Blackcoat. Next, we'll have Chief Operator read off the Dr. Woodson quote.
Okay. I'm going to do quote 10. So it says, Negroes do not need someone to guide them to what persons of another race have developed. They must be taught to think and develop something for themselves. It is most pathetic to see Negroes begging others for a chance, as we have been doing recently. Do not force us into starvation, we said. Let us come into your stores and factories and do a part of what you are doing to profit by our trade. The Negro as a slave developed this fatal sort of dependency and restricted mainly to menial service and drudgery during nominal freedom. He has not grown out of it. Now the Negro is facing the ordeal of either learning to do for himself or to die out gradually in the bread line in the ghetto. Dr. Carter G. Woodson quote, the author of what we know now as Black History Month.
That was a powerful one.
That's some strength.
Next, we'll have Chief Quietwater read off the legal definitions and maroon points.
Okay. So I'll do the maroon historical points. Number 1, was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law? Number 2, providing unity and a strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, Maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. Number 5, Maroons knew their European enemies' language, defenses, and plans. Okay, the legal definitions. Number 1, American, a native of America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and the liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, school, an institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education and enlightening experience. And that's it.
Thank you, Chief Quietwater. So that today pretty much wraps up where we left off with our Treaty of Fort Gibson. We will pick up next week on Article 5. Any closing thoughts?
It's a good meeting tonight.
Same.
I want to figure out where they're getting these ideas from and these plays.
I'll piggyback off that last definition. Chief Quietwater said prisoner of war. It just triggered me. There's no treaty that ends the Civil War. So when you think about that Dr. Carter G. Woodson quote that I read, what they were calling slavery is really military occupation. You were forced to work your land by gunpoint from the militia. Military comes in, ropes off the meets and bounds, as Chief Akibalon said earlier, and then they start bringing in their peasant citizens, which would be the militia. They're going to make sure all of them are armed, right? Once they get that militia established and got their citizens and their peasants and their little towns and villages that they ran us from, then they branched out from the militia, and then you start getting your sheriff, right? When you know American history, before there was police departments, the sheriff was the law. And so now you got 3 layers of defense. You got your military, who initially roped off everything. You got your citizens coming in, which is the militia. And then a certain percentage of those citizens will end up being the sheriff. And then over time, you get more entities out of that. You get your FBI, your CIA, your DEA, your police. And so it's just layers of armed protection that they have at this point. Any one of y'all want to build on that? Shit real.
No, I would say you're absolutely right. And pretty much we've been seeing, I would say within the, we're in the 10th month of Biden's first year under the presidency, we haven't gotten anything specific for our people, and that's due to us being prisoners of war. If we weren't prisoners of war, we'll have something as the Asian community has with their hate act that just passed. We'll have something that the Spanish community has. All these different nations and people, we would have that same protection of those same type of laws. But as you can see, we've been here longer than them, yet we still get neglected. Why is that? Hence, because we're prisoners of war. All of the marching, protesting that happened last year, we haven't reaped any benefits from it. Why is that? Because we're prisoners of war. You have one mainstream Asian hate crime happen, and now you have an act for it within 3 months. That should tell us that we are prisoners of war and underneath military occupation. And until we actually organize and get our things together, we'll continue to be in that predicament, in that situation.
I'm gonna throw one thing in. I don't want to let tonight close without everybody sharing on this. You know, shout out to Grandmaster Jay. And again, got to look at all these so-called people who are supposed to be black media. Why is nobody saying anything about this man and the fact that he had a court date this week? And here's what's interesting for all you so-called, you know, people who look like us that really want to keep it real with us. Here's what's interesting to me. The police killed this woman and nothing was done about it. And the citizens of Louisville marched for over 100 days just to get a murder scene and a criminal case started on what happened. How is the man that organized people to go even get a crime scene established, how is he now indicted and none of you niggas got nothing to say?
For the same exact charges. For the same exact charges.
Right. Forgot about
endangerment with indicted on that. I think they threw more years at him than they were even willing to throw at their own officers.
No, their officers never even had a murder trial. They
Not
never
even
indicted. Yeah, they never indicted their officers.
Oh, wow. Right. That's right.
The black guy's name, who's the district attorney, Tim Scott.
I forget his name.
I remember. I can't think of his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he didn't indict.
Right.
He didn't indict him, and they brought the military out. Here we go. If you're not prisoners of war, why did they bring the military in Louisville last year when they let them know we don't have enough evidence to indict? But I just want us to build on that because this battle is not only do we have our ancestors in Oklahoma that's selling us out, you got people amongst us. How do you not talk about the only win that you had last year?
Mhm.
That's your alpha class. That's the only group of people that stood up for this group of people called prisoners of war. And none of you got nothing to say. Y'all want to, what's y'all shit crazy.
You're right.
Oh, there I am. Oh, there I am.
Chief Black Coat, Chief Quietwater, what y'all want to say on that?
I agree with everything that you what you just said. It's like we'll probably hear more now that he's indicted rather than the support that he needed prior to the indictment. You know, no one had anything to say when he was going through, you know, trying to beat the charges and, you know, trying to get things thrown out and him being pulled off of social media and things like that. And so now I'm sure that just how people are, you know, how people that look like us are, they're going to wait until it's too late for them to start speaking up and having an opinion about what could have, would have, should have been done after we pretty much set the tone last year.
Chief Black Coat, Chief Biko.
I mean,
There you go.
we do this thing every week, you know, to get a message out there, you know, about being a prisoner of war. How is someone facing 20 years right now versus someone is facing 20 years right now that just wanted to bring attention to the Breonna Taylor thing? And he's just out there already corresponding with this group of people, the police of Kentucky. Everybody's aware of everything. He's pointing a weapon, probably doing security type, you know, protocol, procedure things, checking out, scoping things. The policeman that actually went to the wrong house, dumped rounds into someone's crib and actually took a life. Nothing. Just paid leave, vacation. Prisoner of war. Right there.
Chief Biko, where you at?
To me, it just shows the mindset of our people. Like we got a fucked up mindset. We worry about the wrong things, but like you stated, when somebody who's organized us for at least 6 months to get some shit started, at least to show up for something, doesn't get the support or even the backing or even the coverage is crazy in itself. Go back to what Chief Blacko was saying. You have officers who actually fired their gun, don't even have any indictments. You have a person who looked through their scope to see if somebody was about to fire their gun at them, gets indicted. That in itself should show that we are prisoners of war. Now, had it been, you know, a European, Asian, anybody else, pretty sure would have been swept under the rug. Why? Because they're organized, they have nations backing them, things of that nature. As you can see, nobody's been talking about GMJ. Nobody. This man's been left out on the edge to pretty much fend for himself. No coverage, no nothing. And it just shows the disunity amongst our people. It's crazy. Like I guess like you always say, what has to happen for us to actually start doing some shit on a large scale? Because what we did last summer, that was great, but it should have been 10 times more than that. It should have been 10 times more than that. So it's like, damn, what else needs to happen for us to actually do some shit, stand up and actually do some shit about this situation?
Right. Chief Delegator always think about how we should have never let up. You got to understand how big that moment was about George Floyd, the entire planet being upset, people from all over the world. We let up. And now people just feel like they can just get over on us. Like, yeah, just, no one cares too much.
Yeah. What Chief Blackcoat just said, I don't think a lot of us really understand natural law. Natural law has nothing to do with religion. Natural law has no feelings. You can't watch what happened to George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and start the momentum of getting straightening or getting justice from the government. And then a year later, you look back, you got nothing. Nothing. And they threw the George Floyd Act in the trash can, and y'all ain't said nothing. Now they getting ready to, they just indicted Grandmaster Jay. So you can see the trend that we're on. It's almost like we sleepwalking. It's almost like we're sleep. What you think, Chief Akibalon? It's almost like
I think as a whole, people are sleepwalking. There's this quote that says, dang, it's something like there's basically there's like a super small percentage of the 100% that's trying to wake up the like super large group of the 100%. There's a 1% that's like controlling everything, but when the 95 or whatever percent is awake, then we can all take everything back. But I feel like we just don't have no strategy. There was this video that came out around those times, and it was like the issues that we have as a community is that like we don't have no strategy. Yeah, a riot is cool and everything, but a riot is just like an outburst of emotion, and then we don't even do it correctly. Like we go rob malls and stuff like that rather than actually having a like a full stance, like a militia, so to say. Like, yeah, we had the NFAC thing, but like y'all just said, like it died down. I feel like some people are just for things for the moment rather than actually being down with it for like the actual reason to be down with it. And I think it's gonna take a lot for I think it's gonna take some drastic things, and I think it's gonna take things like this over and over to happen until people are eventually tired of it.
So you see more pain, you see more killing before this group gets it. Some more people got to die.
That's the only way that it can happen. But I feel like I just said, this is going to be my whole point for the whole time we're doing this class. I feel like there's a whole playbook that's being played out, and there's like everything is going to keep repeating itself until somebody gets it. And like there has to be somebody strong enough to like wake up a lot more people, because I think Grandmaster Jay did a good job of that. But then it's like book burnings that they used to do when they used to conquer places. They used to burn the book so that history with that place is destroyed. And when you destroy somebody's career or like cancel somebody in this time, it's kind of like completely wiping them off the earth. So when they do that with Grandmaster Jay, it's like you have to find somebody else that's strong enough to even be a leader in that position and really take people to that level.
That's a good point. I would say we'll probably change it is the kids. That's not even future, but them taking kids in a mass type of way, not like one-off situations where they knock off one kid. No, it's gonna be like a lot of them. I think that's gonna wake up more so our people in regards to that. But also, it's like just understanding what we're dealing with. We repeat it every time we get on these meetings. There is no money. So what are we even playing this game for?
It's a literal matrix.
It's a literal matrix. Unplug yourselves. There is no money. There's more of us than there is them.
Everything that we're going through is just literal illusions. Like it's an illusion of like everything is just distorted reality. It's cognitive dissonance. Like we don't see, a lot of people don't realize that like the citizens are the people who really control everything if they knew how to. But they see the government as a super powerful and scary thing that like isn't something that can really control everybody if they don't have the influence that they have. It's basically just dealing with like gangsters and extortionists.
The crazy thing is that the people are the ones that's controlling themselves.
Yeah.
Nobody is coming up to the door every morning saying, okay, make sure you drive 35 miles per hour. Make sure you're doing what these statutes follow you. We're enforcing our own selves. So what I'm getting with that is we can police ourselves without the government.
But with the matrix being ingrained like that, that's why we do it to ourselves, because it's so deeply ingrained in us that they don't even have to do as much as they had to. Just like what they did when they made the two nations go against each other. Once you do something like that, it's like until the people figure out that they're not even they're not even each other's real enemy, then it's like it's gonna go on forever. Just like black people killing black people, or some race doing something to the same race. You're not gonna stop until you see like, hold on, like we fighting each other, but there's somebody like watching us fight each other. So that needs to be the common enemy. I don't even feel like we all have a common enemy yet. I feel like we have an enemy amongst each other. Like, oh, I don't want to do this with these black people because they don't do this or that. But then we go spend money with other races or other people who do the exact same thing. And I'm not saying that like everything has to be streamlined, but it has to be to a point where like we have an actual plan and we have leaders instead of 1,000 people trying to be leaders who don't even really know how to lead and just trying to be a leader based off of ego.
So let me ask y'all something. Chief Biko, both of y'all said that, no, Chief Biko, you said you think a lot of kids would have to die. They look at the trend since school started. They took our history out of school. You didn't give them a reaction. The next month they threw the George Floyd ad down. You didn't give them a reaction as a group of people. Now they've indicted Grandmaster Jay and Dave Chappelle. They're trying to cancel him from a fabricated group of people called gay. Right? You're European first. Your sex is a private preference. So it's almost like you're eating twice in the lunch line. First, you're European, then you section yourself off and say, I'm gay. So now you get back, now you can come back through the line. And then you can say, oh, well, I'm part of the Me Too. So you come back in line.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So I think we're already there where they're doing everything they can to get a reaction from this group. It's like we're just sleepwalking. I mean, why would you send your kid to school when you know that they've just taken your history out?
They don't. I feel like our people want a system to transition to, but that's the thing. Like we've already created this system. You know, you see what I'm saying? Like we've already been doing things. Just exit out of. Like you said, if all of our people, if everybody, all citizens, whatever, say, okay, we're not gonna pay no more taxes, we're not doing none of this shit no more. We can police ourselves. I'm gonna do what I want here. If everybody just went by common law, the whole system would go down. But I feel like people are so afraid, like, oh well, what if I do back out? Then what I'm gonna transition to?
I agree with that.
They feel
Even
like,
with like money, when people think about there's no money, it's like, what am I going to get up and do?
Well, back up real quick. Let's go back to the kids in school. How did they get this done around the Civil War? We haven't got to the Dolls Act yet, but basically you gave your kids to the European and said, I'm gonna let you teach them, right? So look at all the riots last year. Look at all the people y'all age that got arrested for protesting last year with federal charges, right? The George Floyd Act gets thrown out, and the government is now saying, we're gonna take any history about you out of school, and you're still turning your kid over to them. So it's almost like that's the nail in the coffin. You just gave us the next generation.
Well,
we don't have to worry. Go ahead.
Something I would say though is that I feel like this possibly happened like back when the natives and the Europeans were going on during the Seminole Wars and everything. I feel like there is always going to be some sort of split between people who are going to get left behind and people who transition and know how to like build a new world for their family. And I know we have to do it for the whole collective as a whole, but I just realistically, I don't think that any whole of any race is always going to be on the same exact page. So I feel like us doing this, that we're doing these classes and everything, this is helping people that are going to transition to having more knowledge. Is going to help them disconnect from the matrix. People who are teaching people different ways to be self-sustainable and creating their own businesses and really getting out of just the system of relying on the government. I think those are the people that it's kind of like making it to where like survival of the fittest. And that sucks to say, but I feel like that's what it's getting down to. And the pandemic is something that kind of scared me because it really showed me how many people are really like expendable. Like they don't have no type of like, they can't do anything without their government. And it's pretty scary that a lot of people are like that, but I feel like it's really just going to be the survival of the fittest, and that survival of the fittest is going to create a stronger nation, but over time.
Anything else? Chief Biko, Chief Black Coat?
I agree with everybody saying right now, you know. we're just really trying to, figure this thing out moving forward with our group, what it's going to look like, how it's going to become greater. We got work to do. That's one thing I always say.
I would agree with Chief Kivalan in saying that, slowly but surely, a lot of people are waking up to, the system. And then once it becomes trendy or weight, that's when the masses will come. Because all we need is just a majority. Like you said, you're never going to get 100% of the people to be on accord. I don't care what nation, what race you are, you're never going to have that. But if you can get the majority, then you're good to go. Because then after that, people will see, oh, no, they doing shit. I'm about to try to see how they doing that. Then they'll start. So the more people we start to listen with this information, the better off we'll be. But we definitely have to take our kids out of the indoctrination system.
And it starts like this. It starts small like this. That's the only way that they can start is small.
Because everyone that we say our age, they're taking 10 of our kids. But they've already indoctrinated them into the system. So we have to make sure that we're taking the kids out of the system and they're learning what we're learning. So once we move off, we're handing the baton instead of trying to reteach somebody our age. They've already been knowing, so now we can progress. We've always started from ground zero. That's just like finances and everything. Somebody die, we still in debt. How the hell is that possible when we have so many generations in this land? It should be somebody die, okay, you pick up with 250,000. Somebody die, you pick up with 500,000. Somebody die, 1 million, so forth and so on. Every time somebody stops, it's like we're starting from the beginning. We're always going to be playing catch up unless we start strategizing, start getting organized, things of that nature. So that's my thoughts.
And just on what you just said right there, it is being done. Like you said, it's on a small scale. Those of us that get the information, it's our charge to pass that information on to the next generation. And then those people pass that information on. So it's being done. Like you said, the masses of us don't get that. But you gotta learn from the people who win it. I'm just gonna share that. You gotta get information from people who win it. You're not gonna get it from our group. Our group's in last place. So I don't want to hear nothing about money from our group. Our group ain't got it. But yeah.
The same way we learned from our interviews before, we got to do the same thing now. Right. And then two, this is something else I just want to say. We have to, what we're doing is we're creating a law of attraction. So we're going to meet more and more people that think like this. Like I know Chief Blackcoat, there's a guy that he follows on Twitter that I also follow, but a lot of people, it's more people than we think that are on this real history wavelength that we on, but it's just about law of attraction, and we're gonna meet more people that's like this. It's just gonna take time, but there's definitely more of us.
All right, let's shut it down, y'all. That was a good one.
Yeah, definitely a good dialogue for sure.